I'm Joshua Bardwell, and this is the Emax Babyhawk. And today you're going to learn why, despite this being perhaps the least sexy of any of the mini quads I've reviewed, it's actually my favorite. If we were to look at the spec sheet of the Babyhawk and compare it to the spec sheet of the other two microcopters that I've reviewed, which are the Hoverbot Nano and the Furious FPV Mosquito, the Babyhawk would look like a clear loser. It doesn't have super sexy features like the Mosquito's current monitoring and VBAP monitoring and telemetry. It doesn't have the ultra-light carbon fiber frame of the Hoverbot Nano. It looks like a really pedestrian, middle-of-the-road product. And yet, despite that, it is the only one of those copters that when I picked it up and flew it, I just felt like I was flying. I didn't really feel like I was fighting with it. I didn't feel like I wished it were doing something different or it was flying good right up until something happened. It just really felt like I was flying. It felt kind of like flying a bigger copter, which for me is this. I mean, you might say, well, when you're flying a small copter, don't you want it to fly like a small copter? No, I want it to fly like a big copter, just want it to be smaller, right? I want to be able to go around small places. I want to be able to crash into my walls and my dog and not hurt anything, but I still want it to fly and handle like I expect it to. And the Babyhawk delivered that. It didn't fly 100% perfectly, but when you take into account its power to weight ratio, it flew very predictably, very pleasant and very pleasing way. And I don't know why that is. I'd love to be able to tell you, and here's what's different about it. I really don't know. I'm still learning about these micros, and it's a little bit of an unfair comparison because these are different copters. The Mosquito is really more of like a brushless tiny whoop. The Hoverbot is kind of like an F1 car in that it's ultralight and relatively powerful. And this is kind of almost like a family saloon. It's not got a spectacular power to weight ratio, although people are souping it up by running it on 3S or putting different motors in it. I found it to be a little bit underpowered, by which I mean it doesn't have gobs and gobs of extra power like many of the copters we do. It just has a reasonable amount of power. Plenty of power to have fun with, but just not unlimited power on tap. So, if you go through a power loop and you don't start to raise the throttle, it will crash at the bottom because you didn't get as much response as you expected. But once you accommodate that and get used to that, you're good to go. The other thing that makes the Babyhawk stand out is the price. It's only about $100, whereas the Mosquito and the Hoverbot Nano come in around the $250 range. And many people say, frick, for $250, I could practically build a full-size copter. Well, I've never paid that much for a micro. And I certainly understand that feeling. I recommend you start a YouTube channel, and then a few years later, when you get reasonably popular, people will just send them to you for free, and that's my plan. It's been my plan all along, really. No, but for $100, you're kind of in the range where it's starting. Like you could spend $100 on a copter that you're not going to fly maybe every day, or an indoor copter for the winter. And at a price of $100, maybe it's not going to sting quite as much as $250 for full size one. And it flies really good. I mean, for $100, I'm not 100% sure what you're giving up. Let's take a look at some flying and see what you think. If we take a look at the Babyhawk up close, the first thing we can see is it's got 1104 motors. Now those are bigger than the 1103 motors on the Hoverbot Nano and the 1102 motors on the Furious FPV Mosquito. In case you don't know your motor basics, 11 refers to the diameter of the stator, and a 4 or 3 or 2, the second number, refers to the height. So these motors are the same diameter, but they're taller, and as a result, they have more volume, they have more windings, and all else being equal, they should make more power. That being said, the Babyhawk does feel less powerful than at least the Hoverbot Nano, and the reason for that is weight. The Babyhawk comes in around 60 grams, whereas the Hoverbot Nano comes in around 40 grams. The Furious FPV Mosquito, interestingly, also comes in right around 40, maybe 45 grams, and so I think it's the least obviously powerful of the three. Although it's kind of fitting in, it's a smaller one. It's more like a brushless whoop, whereas the Hoverbot Nano and this one are just a little bit bigger. They're in a larger sort of size, and they're competing in a little bit of a different way. I found the props to be quite durable. These are the original props, and I have crashed the dickens out of them. Haven't broke them, haven't chipped them. They're really in pretty good shape. Even a close visual inspection doesn't reveal too many defects. So I'm very happy with the props. The prop guards, at first glance, you can see that the prop guards are not really perfectly rigid. If you compare that to like the Hoverbot Nano, the carbon fiber prop guard on the Hoverbot Nano works really well, and it's basically impossible to get the props to touch anything. Whereas these, if you really tried, you could certainly get the prop to impact the prop guard and maybe to impact something else. Practically speaking, though, I've had zero issues with this damaging the walls of my house. I mean, if you crash into the wall hard enough, you will, make a mark. But the actual props hitting things hasn't been an issue. It's just been zero issue. So overall, despite the fact that a cursory examination might cause me to criticize this, and indeed when I first got this, I thought, oh, that's going to be a problem. It really hasn't been. Looking at the bottom, well, the first thing I noticed when I got it was the battery strap. The battery strap it's too long to take a battery lengthwise like you would normally expect. It can't get back around and grip onto itself because it's too long. I put the batteries in sideways, and then it works okay. And I haven't had a battery pop out on me yet, so that's good. I did mention this to Emax as part of the feedback for the product, and they said, yep, we know that. It's very likely that when you get one of these, they will have a different battery strap on it. If it does have this extra long battery strap on it, just put the battery in sideways instead of front to back, and you'll be fine. I love the fact that this comes with a standard, I think this is a JR connector. I know it's bigger and heavier than some of the other connectors that the microcopters use, but it's kind of freaking annoying to have to buy a separate parallel charge board or separate custom adapter board to charge some weird micro connector. And I guess if you're going to commit to one of these copters, that's no big deal. I find it a little bit refreshing to have a normal connector on here. I can charge these batteries using a normal adapter that I already have. Those of you who are ultra interested in performance won't like this, and this isn't really the copter for you if you're ultra interested in performance. Now, I would love to take the battery strap out and show you what's inside here, but don't take this battery strap out, because getting it back through here is a freaking pain in the butt without disassembling, I don't know how many screws. I think it would take a lot of screws to disassemble, because you see, you'd have to take the motors off to get these prop guards off, and then you have to take the bottom plate. It'd be a lot of screws. I did get it through eventually, but it was a real hassle to get it in here and out there. And the reason for that is can you see what's in there? What's up? What's up in there? You see what's that little black wire in there? That's the freaking antenna. Yep, the antenna is stuffed up in here, in this little hole here. And the RF professional in me died a little bit inside when I saw that, because that's the worst. Antennas should be straight, and they should be free of obstructions for best reception. But on the flip side, I haven't had a single failsafe with it. So for the kind of flying you're not exactly going to do distance records with this thing, are you? I haven't had a single failsafe. I've flown all over my house, upstairs, downstairs, outside, inside. And it certainly does a good job of keeping the antennas from getting chopped up. So as much as I cry every time I think about it, it seems like a good decision. The one downside of this decision, though, is that if you ever do have to get the battery strap back through, getting the battery strap through without snagging and pulling on the antennas is a real freaking pain in the butt. And this is especially true because these are the tiny, tiny, ultra thin antennas like they started using on the XSR and the X4R. So they're much easier to damage than the thicker coax that we used to get. The camera pod is a single self-contained unit. Got a antenna there, dipole antenna, or not a cloverleaf. Again, it's not quite as good a reception, but it's way more durable, and that certainly is something we're going for here. On the back, you've got a button to change your channel, and you've got the receiver here, and the receiver bind button is also very easily accessible. You can't quite see it, but I'm pointing at it there. You don't have to disassemble the copter to bind the receiver, like for example on the Furious Mosquito. So that's it. That's the Emax Babyhawk, and I don't have a huge amount to say about it in terms of technical stuff. All I have to say about it is that I've really enjoyed flying it, and I've really enjoyed owning it. It's been durable. It's been 100% durable. I haven't damaged it over many, many crashes, some severe crashes. It's fun to fly. It flies well. I haven't even really tuned it up. When I go to fly it, I go to it when I want to just relax and not fight and just have a good time flying it around, have a little fun, and then put it away. Maybe someday I'll do some tuning on it, but it kind of does what I want, and I'm not really motivated to try to make it better. And at a price of $100, that's kind of the final nail. Here's how I would sum it up. If you want a brushless replacement for a Tiny Whoop, consider the Furious FPV Mosquito. If you want high power to weight and an ultralight package that just really rips, then consider the Hoverbot Nano. And if you just want to plunk down $100 and have some fun and not think about it too much, then I think the Babyhawk from Emax is the choice that I'd recommend. Thanks for watching. Happy flying.